what happens is that I always have some kind of a thing to work on, and in my daily life, there's some interesting insight that I get, and I can say something about it just to confirm if there's the wisdom or compassion, something good for me that I need to remember. That's how I keep doing this video every single day, pretty much. But since the inventory is getting low, and it's interesting because it's not due to the fact that I'm not interested in this stuff I'm talking about, but rather it's very deep and not easy to capture with any words. But still, I wanted to do it, so I want to give it a try. Maybe the first thing I would do is, what is this thing that I've been concerned about? And basically it's about the compassion or the love, whatever the term you use. And this Myokonin, part of the Shin Buddhism, the people who do not have much education have such an open-hearted, happy living, but belief that they are taken over by Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha means the infinite wisdom or infinite compassion of Buddha, something like that. So the vow is, say Nembutsu, say Namo Amida Butsu, which means I devote myself for the power of Amida Buddha. Basically, they want to be thrown away their self-power, ego, and what's in the mind, and cleansing it by Amida's compassion and wisdom. And whatever the reason is, that simple message worked well with those who are not intellectually advanced and high in the society, but more of a basic level of the people, the peasant, woodcutters, anything like that. And some of them, or many of them, may not be able to even write, letters in Japanese, or may not even count the money. Yet they behave like they are accomplished Zen master, like a sharp insight and the compassionate sense they display. And I've been wondering, and the path I have taken, by the way, is related to Daisetsu. I've known him from his books from 30, 40 years ago. And I gathered and studied and into the Zen, but he also mentioned about Myokonin, so I got more involved. And what happened is that with my experience in Zen, with even awakening, with meditation and so forth, there's some insight, the wisdom part, but the compassion part I felt was missing. So when I noticed the Myokonin displaying the full love and compassion, even to the point of the evil person who may be a thief, and the guy would give some support for them, or just there's no boundary between him and the others, but with the full love of God or the Amida Buddha. So it's almost as if he's replaced by Amida Buddha. And how did it happen? How is it possible? That's been the main concern for the last, I don't know how many days, maybe a week or more. And I've been digging into it. And the resolution of my search and conviction is not quite there. But for the sake of my record, thinking this, okay, let's say if I have to die at the end of the day, I will leave something. So, okay, this is my saying for sharing what I get at this moment in case that I die, which is okay with me. But if there's anybody listening, it may be worthwhile to listen to some of the stories. So the compassion part, Myokonin, is the main interest. I haven't figured out, but I also reflected my passage of life from my early days. And I want to talk a little bit about it. Whether it's going to be any help, I don't know, but I may reflect better as to how I track my time and experiences led me to be here. So it may be meaningful to go through it. Starting with my name, Kiyoshi means pure. And when I was young, I didn't like the name because there was a guy named Kiyoshi Yamashita, and he was kind of a dumb guy. and he was famous artist. And but because of the behavior, I didn't want to be associated with him. So the name Kiyoshi, I didn't like it. But I get the understanding my mother may have chosen that name, and the Kiyoshi means pure. And later I found that sounds pretty good. So anyway, that's just the background, that I have this little twisted view of my name, but over time I have figured out certain things. But back to the relating to this compassion, one thing I can say is that when I was little, maybe 8, 10 years old, I saw a kid. At the time, they bring the lunch from the lunch meal from home, and he was hiding his lunchbox, and there was nothing in there but the one piece of plum. And as little as I was, but compared to my lunchbox, which may have had some seaweed and salmon and a few more eggs and stuff like that, he had very little. And I was awestruck, couldn't figure out how could this be. And that's one of the incident I remember. The other incident I can talk about is that I didn't like a bureaucracy. When I was in kindergarten, I heard that I bit the finger of the teacher. And I don't know why, but I'm fairly certain that I was forced to do something and I didn't want to do it. So anything like that, I may have had those bad character or certain bias in certain direction. The other thing I can say is that my father was more entrepreneurial and fun-loving, outgoing, and mother was the opposite, like a traditional Japanese wife, doing the kitchen work and basic and quiet. More meditative, she had understanding of the art. My father didn't. My father was outgoing. My mother was more inward. So I have those two characters, I feel. I don't know what to do with it, but like an implanting process as you grow older, get born and, you're born and get older, implanting, associating with your friends or the parents nearby. So that may become part of my karma, so to speak, which some of them I like, some of them I don't like. So I have to work out, kind of clean up my system, so to speak. And that's been the process I see when I track back my history of my life. One point I can remember is that I read the Pascal's thought pieces, Pensées, and I was in the dark. That was when I was 17 or something, because it talked about what's the point of wealth and your life. You're such a tiny little thing. And when I read that, I could relate to that, and I had a feeling of darkness all around me. I couldn't do what to do, figure out what to do, but I let it resolve, and that stayed with me. So I went to the church from Christianity and others, but I didn't get the answer. In the meantime, I got interested in various things because I was very exploratory by nature, or curiosity, lots of curiosity. I want to know what life is, what the world is like. I want to experience it, not just conceptually understand. So I had little discussion with my friends that, okay, this sounds like they know what they're talking about, but I was very doubtful. Unless you have experience of it, what's the meaning of it? So I felt I was experiencing maybe more than typical, even hitchhiking or doing some dubious things here and there, or male-female relationship and other stuff. And also even in the work, from the engineering, the science, the Fukushima nuclear safety analysis I did, and then changed to something else, business. Went to business school and studied, and then picked up the book of Daisetsu and found that this is interesting. So my life's journey is one after the other. I'm living in Japan and the US and have had a house in Ireland or New Zealand. I jump around. But experiencing to know what this life is about. And I still have that sense that I don't want to be molded in my shell, but rather to know, even to the point of the Ukraine, obviously, or Trump situation, some Congress problem, global warming or the climate change. and the suicide and the murders and the political turmoil, China, all that stuff. I have interest because I'm part of the society. I want to know what's going on so that I can shift my emphasis as to what I can contribute. Of course, I'm just a little tiny thing, but I have this curiosity. So those are roughly the process, and then into the Zen and meditation, some awakening, and then coming closer to this current age of 74, I got some sense of Zen. But even with awakening, I wasn't resolved in the sense that I may have some feeling about the wisdom and how the problem can be resolved by having a calm and quiet mind and all of that. But still, the compassion part I felt I was missing. But if I reflect back the days when I was young, looking at the little kid with that bento box, or maybe when I was traveling in Mexico and with American guys on the horse, and there's a village there, and the people are happy. I also have people talking to me, this and that, many stories about the tribe man or people visiting Africa, and then he thought that he got the pineapple and told the kids, why don't you bring more pineapple? I'll give you some money, then you can do more education. And the kid says, I don't need it. So he had a trouble. So all of that indicate there's still a gap between tribe people, different interests, different bias, and why it happens. And there's a friction among those different groups of people. And I worked out in the company as a management consulting business and turning around the company to perform better, to basically open up the blockages within the organization. And that analogy of that is also, I can see it happen in my awakening. Organizational awakening is one, but personally, I have blockage within myself. And there's that the mini-me, relate to each other, customer, suppliers, as much as in the company, each department and unit has to relate to each other as customer and supplier. So it's the same construct. So how to develop the flow, get out of the blockage, more coherent, harmonized organization in the company setting or any organization or within each individual. That's what I see. I also realize more and more that the process is very much related to the biology. Because if you think about the neuron and the growth of the connection from one mini-me to the other mini-me, because the neural network is connecting all the dots and stuff like a network, and that network configuration cannot change overnight. So the process of the habitual change is a good example that you cannot do overnight. And therefore, all the issues about the Ukraine and Putin and Trump and politicals and the organizational and the climate and all that takes time. I know that. But so what? Recognizing that is important, but what is the driving force for us to grow? That's the question. Okay, compassion and wisdom. So the point I'm at is that I feel those are the element we are given from the birth or before our birth, and how to connect to that. And because it's before the birth and it's like a program of the universe, it is beyond the realm of mind. It's beyond that. So you have to connect to that. And I keep saying it's almost like going back to the Garden of Eden and bite again the apple, the knowledge, in the manner and taste it and have a way so that you don't develop the bad karma, which is not easy because your parents and all that is already there. And how can you be clean and like a rebooting the system? So that's the name of the game. And then the religion and the spiritual pursuit has some element to access that, to contribute. And especially when I'm coming from the Zen angle of the wisdom, it's not good enough. And when I look at Myokonin, who are basic people, open and share things, as if they are behaving not as an individual, but replacing them with Amida Buddha. So they are like the light of the universe or the earth. And those are not well-educated people. But education gives us more inventory of knowledge and the wise discussion, philosophy, right and left, and why not, and many references nobody can understand. But these guys can, without the heavy burden of the knowledge, get the sense of wisdom or compassion to see that everybody is one, we are together, and Amida Buddha is making us to realize the potential, and they want to be, and they become Amida Buddha while they're alive. And that's what I see as many examples. I spend times looking at all the writings by someone else about different people, Saich and Shoma, Kichibei, and others who are like peasant level people. Some cannot write well, but their words have such a weight and wisdom and compassion, especially compassion, which was missing in Zen. So that's where I am. I want to dig in, or I have to try it out to replace myself, Amida Buddha, probably. And I don't know how, well, I have some intuitive sense. It's purifying it. It's one of the approaches, purifying. And then the heart bring into the system, because without the heart, not just the brain, we cannot function, because the heart is the origin of where we came from. And they don't fight each other between the ants and the, whatever the flowers and things like that. They just harmoniously, they may appear to be fighting from the objective point of view. They know the limit. And the plants, they grow any place, they don't complain where they are, but they do their best, and they learn, and they shift their DNA and whatever needed so that they can survive. So they are very flexible in the sense of finding the passage. And that's the kind of a fluidity based upon the law of nature that is already built in us and expanding and expressing the potential. And it's called Buddha nature. Something of the Buddha nature is within us, everywhere. And with that world view, and of course Myokonin and those guys don't think in that global term and the philosophical term, but they're just there behaving precisely as if they are the Amida Buddha. Amida means they give up, replace them by, and the Buddha is the infinite potential that exists within Buddha. That's a Busho, Buddha nature. And that's what I see. And to me, that's just, they call the Myokonin as wondrous people, representing Amida's vow to save people with compassion. So there's similarity to Christianity, but what I see in case of Shin Buddhism, this is part of Shin Buddhism, is that even the evil men, sinners, are forgiven if they vow and say, Nam Amida Butsu, I forgive myself for the power of Amida Buddha. And there are people who have shown that to happen. Maybe it works only certain segment of the society. And we need some kind of a stupid, ridiculous legal system to make things happen for the world to function. So you cannot just replace one to the other. But still, my curiosity is that basic sense of who they are and the idea behind this, as I can share this in the display, about why they behave like almost like Amida Buddha, beyond the boundary to share the compassion. I don't mean to say I want to understand it. It's beyond understanding already. because it's beyond the mind. That's the spiritual teaching or religious. Not in the sense of religious being the bureaucratic organization with dogma, but in the pure sense, to find the Pure Land, Shin Buddhism, in the approach. So that's where I am, for the record. Thank you.